Okay, guys, so I gotta share this with you about how Viola Davis changed my life. Yes, Viola Davis. Now, you may be wondering, does she know Viola Davis? The Viola Davis that's the Grammy Award winning, Tony Award winning, Oscar Award winning, best-selling novelist, Viola Davis? No, I don't know her. But she changed my life. And how did she change my life? I have to share this story because Viola wrote her memoir, Finding Me, and it was published in 2022. She came on Oprah Winfrey show that she did an interview with her promoting her book. Viola shared her testimony, and I'm going to say testimony because, you know, I'm a church girl and I believe in testimonies and prayers. So she shared her testimony about a portion in her book referencing how she believed God and prayed for her husband, her now husband of over 21 years, Julian. So she was sharing her testimony, and I was looking at the pure joy in her face when sharing how it came about. And she simply just gave her testimony about her talking to God. And so she didn't reference it the way that we would reference it in the church world, in the vernacular that we're used to. No, she referenced it as just something that she talked to God about. So she had reached a point in her life where she was ready to settle down and meet the man that God had for her. And she petitioned the Lord about it. She was so specific and intentional about what she wanted from the man that she was asking God for. And she was talking about his stature, the way that he's built, the way that he looks, about his background. She was specific about his experiences, things that she wanted specifically because of where she was in her life, which let me know that she had arrived at a place in her life where she was ready to receive that type of love and that type of man. And it wasn't unrealistic expectations. So she wasn't giving off a list and setting a standard that she herself had not operated in. She was speaking from a place of experience of where she had arrived in her life and the things that she's gone through and what she wants out of life, because that's what she herself was existing in. Because some of us have unrealistic expectations and standards as single women of what we want in a man and what we're not going to tolerate, but some of the things we haven't measured up to and we don't live up to. But that's another story, because I'm going to set the platform because I want to kick us off on this journey, this podcast journey of discovering me. So in her testimony, she was sharing about how she asked God, and she was specific with God about what kind of man she wanted. And she made a promise to God. She told God that if he blessed her with that, and he granted her with that, then she promised, even though she hadn't talked to him in a long time. And she referenced and made a joke about God may not have even remembered who she was. She said, if you bless me with this. So she made a promise to him, hoping that he would honor a promise to her, that she would return to church. And she laughed when she talked with Oprah, and she spoke about a few weeks later, her encounter with Julian was such a chance encounter. And his first comment to her about taking her out was inviting her to church. Now look at the irony about just talking to God, praying to God, because that's all she was doing was praying, because that's all we should do when we pray to God. We should just talk to him. We should make our petitions to him. Let our petitions be known. So what motivated me about this is because I too have been in a place where I have been divorced. I've been married for 10 years. I wrote a book, and we're going to talk about that in a podcast called Lord, Where's My Husband? Was what felt like I spent some time getting to know who Natalie was in the context of who God purposed me to be. So I felt like I made it to that place, even through that marriage, only for it to fail. But the failure isn't the testimony. The failure is not the theme of the conversation. It's the fact that I took time with myself and God, even post-marriage, to make sure to rid my life of unnecessary baggage that may have been carried from that marriage, and to make sure that all of the residue of that marriage was gone before I made up my mind that I was ready for what God may have for me. So when I heard her testimony, even though in my past, I'm sure at some point I've written down a list, because I'm a person that believes in declarations and praying with faith and believing God, and affirmations and speaking things into existence. That's a part of who I am. So the fact that she had this mere conversation, it ignited something in me to prepare myself in a conversation with God about what it was that I wanted. And even if I believed that in the past and I wrote that in the past, I believe that in this space in my life that I've learned some lessons around my journey, and marriage has taught me some things. And the biggest thing that marriage taught me as the marriage ended is that just because the marriage ended doesn't mean it stopped me from being a wife. See, when God prepared me and got me ready for my previous marriage, he created a wife that's in me because I did the work. So when I petition the Lord and ask God, where's my husband? It's because I'm already a wife. What is the dangerous part about being a wife is that when you're in your single state, you're supposed to still be a wife in wife nature. And so if you're encountering somebody that is not husband material, there's no reason you should display your wife nature to somebody that doesn't already possess husband characteristics or is looking for a wife. On the flip side, there are some men that are ready for a wife. And when they encounter a woman that has a wife nature, they may claim you or want you or pull you into their world because they see the benefits of the wife nature that's in you, but it doesn't mean that they are your husband. So this thing is very serious and sensitive because we don't want to yoke ourselves up with somebody, again, especially for us that's been married before. We don't want to yoke ourselves up again with somebody that has not been designed for us and yoked for us from God himself. So when I watched Viola and I got excited and I smiled with her if I knew her, I was excited for her because I also heard the rest of her testimony and her journey and some of the things that she talked about in her book from her experiences of childhood and struggles and things that she's gone through. So to see her arrive at a place in her life that she now can petition the Lord to say, I'm ready for this part of my journey. And then a few weeks later, for God to manifest that because she asked, motivated me to, especially me, a woman that operates in a realm of faith that believes God for the impossible. Surely if God did it for her, then he can do it for me. Well, I didn't stop there in my motivation. I wanted to solicit some of my single friends because I have single friends that were desiring and have desires to have their husband and for God to bring to them who is designed and crafted for them. So I reached out to two of my other single friends. I forwarded them the video, and just as a disclaimer, I sent that video to several other people as motivators, single women, to let them know, even at Viola's age, and I think she may at that time been broaching her 40s, and right now she's in her late 50s, been with Julian for over 20 something years. That if he did it for her, then he can do it for us as well. And so in my motivation, I reached out to them and one of my two closest friends that are single. I said, let's do this together. So just like Viola petitioned the Lord, this was in 2022. She wrote she was on the interview in April 2022. So just like she petitioned the Lord, I said, let's write ours down. Let's pray. I said, so I challenged them. I said, we're going to go on a prayer and we're going to believe that God is getting us prepared for our him, is what I titled it, our him, that he's also getting us ready for him, that he's getting him ready for us and getting us ready for him. And I asked him, I said, I'm going to go on a 7-day prayer. I'm just going to pray. I'm going to pray these specific things, but I'm going to ask you, do not be negative in this season. Don't doubt God. You have to step up with your faith, because I also know as a woman of God that whatsoever a man thinketh, so is he. So if you're thinking negative things, then negative will come to you. And the Bible also says that call those things that be not as though they were. So if you're believing something, you got to call it as if into existence for where it already is, as if it already exists. And so you can't have faith and then doubt God at the same time. So I wanted to make sure that as we're going into this prayer and believing God for our mate, that we didn't have any negative connotations with it. So I got them to agree to it. So I went on a prayer and I wrote down my specific list. And I'll say attributes. I don't want to say a list. I'm going to say attributes, because my list didn't have anything to do with some far-fetched expectation or standard. It was attributes that I had journeyed through in life, that I would like to see somebody else match me or be there in my weak areas where they were strong, and then vice versa. But so that we have some commonality, we had some attraction. So I was specific in my wants. And so fast forward, I'm going to take you guys on a journey. I'm only going to share with you just a little bit of my motivation, and then we're going to come back and on part 2, and I'm going to share a little bit more with you. So fast forward 7 days into that prayer, I left it there. I gave it to God. And I went on about my journey, believing God, having faith that when it was time, then God will do so. I didn't have an unrealistic expectation that because he did it for Viola Davis in a few weeks that he was going to do it the same way for me. No, I just used her story as a motivation. And so I want to say fast forward almost 1 year to the date, in June of 2023. I was scrolling on Facebook, and I saw an image of an old classmate of mine that I haven't seen in almost 30 years. I saw a post. I didn't even see a picture. I saw a post that said something about the Lord. There was several different posts on that page that said something about the Lord that caught my attention, because people post things on social media about God all the time, but doesn't mean that they have a relationship with God. And I have wisdom and discernment enough to know specific things. And it was something about that post that arrested me in my mind. And it was almost like God wouldn't allow it to get past me, because for 3 days, I thought about this post. I thought about these posts on that page. Now, mind you, I've probably been friends with the classmate for years, seen things that they post over the years, but never caught my attention until now. So it was puzzling to me why now, even though I didn't see a picture on that post, I can see that man's face. I could see his smile. I remember encountering him in high school. So because 3 days he was on my mind, I ended up asking my best friend, who also was friends with one of his siblings, hey, what do we know about him in this stage in our life? Because here we are 30-something years past high school. And she didn't know anything, hadn't heard anything. And I just said, I'm just going to reach out. I'm just going to send a messenger, whether or not I know he's involved or not, just to say hello. I didn't know if him being in my spirit was something romantic or anything. I just didn't know. So if nothing else, reach out to him so I can pray with him or pray for him or believe in God for whatever it is that he's going through. And so I did. On June the 13th, 2023, almost a year to the date past the time that I was inspired by Viola Davis, I reached out to this man, and it has changed my life. It makes me emotional thinking about it, and I can't wait to share the rest of the story and the testimony with you, because if God did it for Viola Davis and God did it for a Natalie Patton, then I know that he can do it for my single believing sisters, still trusting the Lord and waiting on the equally yoked partner that they desire. So I want you to go on a journey with me. We're going to go over some topics from my book, Lord, Where's My Husband? But we're going to do a self-discovery to prepare you for all that God has for you.